Should I possibly go back to a wrist strap release for a Scott S2? Maybe. Hello and welcome back to the YouTube channel. MFJJ here, looking at the Scott S2 sear style release. Now what that means is this should have a cleaner mechanism, much like a Target release has, where you engage a spring tension pressure against it and the break is significantly different. This is Scott's first one. Carter's made a couple like this. I might be overlooking and forgetting other companies that have possibly made ones like this. Comment down below after you like and subscribe and follow along, please, and tell me how dumb I am that I didn't mention this release or that release. Always like that feedback. That's always good. But this is relatively simple. You push this in and it engages the tension so there's not travel in there. All right. Now my only gripe about this is if I'm going to use a wrist strap, because of my draw length and my anchor point, I like my trigger to be up closer to the jaw, if I can. The farther distance you have back here, the different your anchor point's going to be in relation to axle size of a bow. I.e., if you're shooting a 29-inch draw length and your bow's 38 axle to axle, this is probably fine. If you're shooting a 32-inch axle to axle bow and you got a 28-inch draw length, this may end up being a little long. And when you try to get things anchored into your face, you end up basically doing this. You end up tipping your head forward to get the anchor point right, at least in most of the experiences I've had with people. But we'll play with this for a little bit and see how it feels. Run some arrows through it, see if I can set the tension where I like it. I also, when shooting a four-finger style release like this, because I shot one for a very long time, I like to have it heavy. I don't want it light. Now there is such a thing as too heavy, where it becomes real difficult to get it to go off, which, man, this has got some foam or something on it. It's kind of hard to put on. There you go. I imagine that'll get better as soon as you shoot a little bit and break in the strap, but this is literally brand new, never been used. And hopefully that squeaky goes away a little bit. So first things first, this is a mile too long. I can't tell you how often I see somebody come into the shop and their release is set a mile too long and everything's like this, or their hands back away from their jaw. With today's modern equipment and the axle-to-axle size and dimension that we have to deal with, this release needs to be way back and your finger needs to come quite a bit around the trigger to get an anchor point that has your head in an upright position. If you draw your bow back and have somebody take a picture of you and you look like this, your release is way too long or your loop's way too long to try to get a good solid anchor point. When we used to shoot really long axle-to-axle bows, it was really easy to get away with that, but now you can't. So I can't emphasize that enough. Make sure your release is almost uncomfortably short because it will give you a better overall head position and anchor point for most people. Now that doesn't necessarily compensate for people with really big noses or really squatty faces because everything's a little different in that regard, but that looks a lot closer to what I would probably do. And I will start with this and adjust it accordingly until it feels comfortable to me. This is a very simple cord adjustment system. It's just a clamp, a flat bar, and two screws. So you just tighten it up and voila, she's stuck on there. And I'm assuming one of these is travel, one of these is tension, and we'll play with it a little bit and figure out what that is. Some people like movement in the trigger before it goes off. That's what they're comfortable with, and that's totally fine. Personally, I prefer to not have movement. I just want it to be really stiff as I pull against it and pull against it and pull against it, and then it goes off. But we'll try this. I'm willing to bet this is set pretty light right now. Is it better behind me? Do you want that? Do you want that light on at all, or no?
I think we got plenty of light in here.
Okay. Well, we're in the middle of the day. If my dog doesn't get in the way here. Okay. So once again, whenever you're trying a new release or adjusting the tension of a release, the first time you pull it back, do not pull it directly at your face, just in case the tension's too light and it goes off. So I'm going to deliberately cock my head out of the way. There we go. All right. So that's really light. So we're going to figure out which one of these is tension and which one of these is travel. And I think I left the Allen wrench over on the counter. I did. Stay here. There we go. Okay. So, is that the right one? Nope. Go down one. So let's try this one in the front first. Screw it in a little bit, about a half a turn. We'll see if this is any lighter or not, or if I can feel the trigger moving. Once again, you make an adjustment on your release. Do not draw straight back at your face. In here. Yeah, it doesn't feel any heavier, so I'm betting that's travel, and I thought I felt the trigger move a little bit before it went off. So let's try this back one. Give it a little squeezy, and that sounds like a spring, so that's probably what it is. Now, I have a method for not punching myself in the face in these scenarios, just to be safe. So hook your loop on your string loop here, like that. Grab your string and your cables and pull as hard as you can. Ugh. Okay, so if you set your release too light to where the pressure of the bow will fire it, it'll usually pop open when you do that. And you hopefully don't, once again, punch yourself in the face. All right, let's see if we're lucky here. All right. Okay, that felt a little heavier. Not enough, but it's definitely heavier, so let's go again. Now, I have found that the average person, in general, likes a really light trigger. So a manufacturer will commonly, deliberately, make these things really light. So sometimes they'll actually offer a different spring set. Carter has the Plus series of their releases where you can actually swap the springs in and out. So you can put a heavier spring in rather than just relying on tightening the spring pressure in it with a screw, to where you can do in combination. So if you want like a really super heavy trigger, that's definitely one to look at. And some manufacturers have different springs, but they don't come with them, like you can request them. So something to consider if you want to go to a heavier overall mechanism. Here we go, head out of the way. You know, one of these times I pull this back, I'm going to punch myself, right? I'm going to go the wrong way and it's all going to go bad. Yeah. That does feel better, but I'm concerned it's not going to get heavy enough for me to like it personally, because it still doesn't feel like it's super duper heavy. All right, we'll try that again. Let me pull a couple more. And try not to break stiff. Oh, put a hole in it. Dang it. Okay. All right, here we go. All right. There we go. That's a little heavier. I can feel that a little bit more. And now I can feel that creep in it. I'll try to take that out a little bit. So this, I'm pretty convinced this front one's travel. Back that out to where it was. See if we can get all the movement out of it, pre-movement. Here we go. Once again, don't pull towards your face. That feels a lot better. That might actually be doable. It might be heavy enough for me to feel comfortable with it. One more thing I can feel here. Now that I've shot it a little bit, it's still too long. So hopefully this gives you a relative idea, which to give you dimensional, I've got like a pretty big hand. I have skinny fingers, but it's like 8.5 from end to end. and across is like almost 8. So that's a pretty good size hand for how short that is. Okay, so keep that in mind. Look at where my hand is and look at where my trigger is. And this is too long for me. So you might want to assess that when you're looking at your own of whether or not you have your release set in the right spot. There we go, a little shorter. And it's pretty amazing when you start really getting to know a lot of the people in the industry on the higher end, how many of them have a really short release setup that use a strap. And it's just to get that anchor point. If these things were longer, like they used to be, it's nowhere near as hard. But today, everything's so short, it's hard to get your head in an upright position. That's more like it. Yeah, that feels good. Yeah. That'll work. I wish it was about 5 or 10 pounds heavier, but I keep hearing the spring as I'm tightening it, and I'm a little worried if I go any tighter, it's probably going to crack the spring. So I'll shoot one more for you here and call it good. I still hear that strap squeaking. I'm assuming it would work its way out after you shoot for a little bit. I'm assuming it would, but it's definitely something to consider in longevity if I ended up using this. All in all, that's a pretty nice release. Very, very manipulable trigger, which a lot of the releases out there, you can't really manipulate them that much in a wrist strap style. So this is really more of a target grade style release in a strap. Good work, Scott. I think it's a really nice system and definitely can adjust it to where someone like me who's a little picky about how those things feel can do it. We should have these on the website right now. I want to say we had like a dozen of them in stock if somebody's actually interested. And head on over to podiumarchery.com for that or anything similar therein to it. And this would also have free shipping on it. Comment down below on what I didn't talk about here that you would have liked to have seen or some way you'd want me to test this other than how I did. And please don't tell me shoot it 5,000 times and tell me how it holds up because I don't have that kind of time, folks. I'm really sorry. I wish I did, but I don't. What else are we looking at us to review and look at? Comment down below again. Make sure you're following along on Instagram, and I am trying to do a better job of posting stuff more regularly there, and that will improve and improve and improve as time goes on, and we're going to have some pretty exciting giveaway news coming up really soon. I'm going to start giving these bows away. Make sure you're following along to see that happen. Thanks for watching.